And even if you say goodbye, you'll never go away. While the rainbow in my sky, my colors in the gray, my only wish on a star, sunshine of the day, the only song that my piano ever plays. And even if you say goodbye, you'll always be around to lift me up and take me high, keep my feet close to the ground. Are you proud of me tonight? Dreams are coming true. I choose the light, nothing to lose if I lose you. New day will everyone cries, don't cry. Oh, darkness will fade, all the pain will go by, but we will stay, even if you say goodbye. Même si tu dis adieu, tu ne partiras jamais. Ton ciel, ton ciel bleu, mes couleurs dans le cri, l'amour se souhaite sous un ciel tard, un rayon de la journée, la seule chanson que mon piano peut jouer. Don't cry alone, darkness will fall, the pain will go by, but even as you say,
Thank you, and welcome everyone to Muslim Women Speakers Friday Forum. My name is Soraya Dean, and today I'm speaking to you from Los Angeles. We are a coalition of Muslim women led by Anila Ali. She is not here today. I moderate this program called Friday Forum. If you looked at that montage, I am just reminded every day how tough this work is. There was our friend and colleague, one guy whom you saw. His name was Imtiaz Mir. He's a Palestinian. He went with us on a delegation to Israel, and he was so moved. He went back to Pakistan to say, let's have peace with Israel. And sadly, 2 months ago, he was gunned down on the streets in Pakistan. That is the nature of this work. And today I'm so honored to speak with Tom Wagner. I don't think he is somebody else other than a brother from another mother. Our hearts are connected in this mission of peacemaking. And I'm so honored to read his book. Tom, I will introduce you, but I have to say I read your book and I was highlighting some questions I needed to ask you. But every time I highlighted one sentence, the next sentence was even more important. Then I said to myself, maybe I should highlight the whole book. Thank you, Tom. So honored, so privileged to have received that first copy from you and having read it. So we have to share that. That is the spirit of my work too. So Tom is founded the. Today I will introduce Tom again. We will have Tom will speak for a few minutes. I'll ask him some questions, and then we will open up to questions from the audience. And we are live on Facebook too. So this will be watched by hundreds of thousands of people watch our program. So let our message be one of strength and one of possibility, hope, and joy. And peace, Tom, you say, is not stopping the firing. It is when the mind stops producing the enemy. So this 1 hour, I invite every one of you listening to this program. Let's come together to explore possibilities. The challenges are immense. Nobody is disputing that. But if we are not part of the solution, we are the problem. So my dear friend Tom founded the Middle East Center, which serves as a platform for Zoom meetings and direct social media dialogue between Middle East nations, aimed at developing a shared Abrahamic consciousness. Such a powerful word. The center organizes various dialogue initiatives from meetings between rabbis and imams, business collaborations, as well as grassroots WhatsApp, Facebook groups for public dialogue. Tom is an award-winning author, and there's so much more to tell about him. But his recent book, The Abrahamic Revolution, The Price of Political Abrahamism is a must read. I hope Tom can put in the chat where people can buy this book. I assign it as a must read in my work. Tom, I want to begin by hearing, why are you called to do this work? What is your story? Where were you raised? Why are you so relentlessly pursuing peace between the Arabs and the Palestinians and the Muslims?
Shalom and salam alaikum from Israel. First of all, my sister, thank you for your kind words and for having me in this distinguished forum. It's a great honor, and I'm humbled by your kind words and this amazing introduction. First of all, thank you. I'm an Israeli, a Jew. I served my country in the IDF as a coordinator between the IDF and the Palestinian police in the Jericho district many years ago, and I was the spokesperson of the Peres Center for Peace in the years that Shimon Peres was alive and was the founding spirit of the Abrahamic connections or the peace possibilities in the Middle East. That gave me a unique perspective. I lost friends to this conflict while I served in the IDF. I saw the price of occupation for both sides and the problems with the alternatives and with extremism on first hand. And for many years, I was part of the Israeli peace camp that pursued the two-state solution. But after October 7th, I think that we saw that political or sort of agreement that creates borders is not enough. Maybe it could be a part of the solution. Maybe there are problems with those solutions, but it's definitely not enough, because we had sort of, even if it wasn't declared, we had sort of separation and independence between Gaza and Israel before October 7th, but it wasn't good enough. Hatred still created wars. And that started the search for new formulas and new thoughts, because we need new ideas. And I think that the problem is that most ideas are either created in the Israeli side or in the Muslim side or in the West, that is looking from a lot of distance at this problem. And we rarely find a genuine dialogue in the Middle East, not only between governments in closed rooms that represent interest, but between the peoples. And after October 7th, we started creating sort of a discrete dialogue between intellectuals, thought leaders, politicians from many Middle Eastern countries. And we found out that the formula of the Middle East today doesn't work. It doesn't work not only for the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. The situation of the Middle East today is a lot more complex than this problem, and other nations and also other countries in the Middle East also experience problem between minorities and majority populations, or conditions that are the result of extremism and that creates civil wars, or militias that are targeting civilians in give or take in every country in the Middle East. And sometimes those conflicts are between Sunnis and Shias. Sometimes it's targeting Christians. But extremism is dictating impossible reality in this region. And while we were discussing, we found out that the formula that Europe were trying to dictate to us, the two-state solution that basically creates separation as the answer, is not what created the success story of Europe. What created the success story of Europe was creating sovereignty for legitimate states rather than militias, defeating the aggressor that wanted to occupy everyone, and the creation of a European identity that as an umbrella identity that didn't come to contradict anyone's religion or nationality or narrative, but rather to create a space for everyone. And this allowed the creation of a political solution for Europe that basically created confederation that is a lot more stable model than trying to solve problem between two sides as a sub-zero game. But it couldn't happen without the creation of a European identity that allows the German and the French that had many wars before it to be a part of the same story, of the same inclusive identity. And actually, in the Middle East, we have a lot more in common than the Europeans to start with because of the connections between the religions, Islam and Judaism, and Christianity as well. All of them are Abrahamic religions, and because of the fact that Jews and Arabs are part of the same family, and both sides acknowledge that they come from the same forefather, from Abraham, even if they're religious or non-religious, it's a part of our shared history. And you know, Soraya, you called me brother in the beginning, and then I called you sister. And I think that it means a lot because in any place in the world, people will automatically recognize that there should be a difference between how you manage a conflict within a family and how you manage conflicts with sworn enemies that are about to destroy you. Those are not the same conversations, and everyone will recognize it. So once we recognize that all of us are the children of Abraham, and he is a grandfather, I mean, some of us are the children of Abraham by actual genetics, and some of us are by assimilation to one of the religions, and both are okay. That connects us, and that connection can lead to new understanding, because once we understand that this war, this conflict would embarrass our forefather, and no one would like to see their children or their grandchildren fighting to the point that they kill each other's children without any recognition in the value of family, without any recognition of the connections between the religions. All of us believe in the same one God. All of us believe in the same story of the world that is based on the Bible and repeated upon in the Quran. The Quran, as I said before, is to me a Zionist document. Basically, everyone should have a room to exist as family with understanding each other's needs, giving up on some instances to allow the family connection to prosper, because families do give up to each other, to benefit each other. And from there, the political solution can grow by the same model that the European Union created from a European identity, joint political institutions, not only parliament, but also a singing contest, football championship, associations of museums and libraries, and many subsystems that create kinship instead of enmity between the people. And this creates a clear path for the Middle East towards a prosperous future that is still remote. The processes that happened in Europe took dozens of years. Those are not things we cannot switch the hearts of the minds of the people from enmity to kinship in a few days or few months. Those are deep processes, but it seems like everyone are working on political solutions rather on creating alliances and creating connections and creating dialogue, because the Middle East doesn't have actually any amount of dialogue. The media in the Arabic language always present Israelis that are not a part of this discussion in the worst light. The Israeli media also tend to present Arabs always in a scary light, or the negative sides or the radical side of the Muslims, without giving any space to moderate voices from the Arab world. And we're not presented in everyone in the others media. If an Israeli is opening his social media, he only sees Israeli voices. If an Arab or a Muslim from another country opens his social media, he rarely hears Jewish or Israeli voices. And on both sides, we saw elements that use this void to demonize the other, to create fear from each other. You rarely hear any positive discussions on the other side, or not even positive, but just sincere and objective report on the other side, fears, hopes, dreams, nightmares. Today we speak in 2025, in the end of 2025. We are after a technological revolution that started in the COVID and totally revolutionized the way we work. We meet on Zoom now. We broadcast this meeting on YouTube. We have social media. We have AI for translation. We have all the technological solutions to create dialogue between the nations. But still, it rarely happens. It doesn't happen naturally. And we should facilitate it. You started in your introduction, you spoke about the hardships of pursuing peace, and your colleague that I heard of that was assassinated. And we can only send our regards for his family and wish that the people that are behind it will be punished, and that the nations will be taught better than to kill the peace seekers. But
Yes, I want to interject here a little, Tom. You said the Quran is a Zionist document, and there's ample spaces in the Quran where it calls us to accept the Jews as a nation. If you look at Quran 17, 104, the night journey, thereafter we said to the children of Israel, dwell securely in the promised land, and when the last warning will come to pass, we'll gather you together in a mingled crowd. Then Surah Madiyat 5:21, the Quran speaks of the holy land assigned to the children of Israel. O my people, enter the holy land which Allah has assigned to you, and do not turn back and become losers. And then in your book, you said Prophet Muhammad himself made a military alliance with the children of Israel and instructed the believers to deal with the people of the book in the gentlest possible way. And as a Muslim woman, I have to very humbly accept that the Muslim world has failed in that regard. Our religious leaders have not taught us this. It has emboldened more this political Islam that you are talking about. So the path is hard, Tom, but the realization has to come. 2 days ago, I was having a conversation with somebody from Egypt who kept saying Israel was ISIS, Israel was this, Israel was that. And he's an Egyptian Arab who has failed to realize what happened in Egypt. Egypt was a predominant Christian country, today is Muslim, and the Coptic Christians are totally lost their religious freedom. I work with the Religious Freedom Roundtable. So I think there's something that's lacking, that in our world we are not willing to go back and do some introspection, do some work. Do you have a formula for that? It is true you are calling for dialogue, but is there a system that we need to follow? Because this is like tilling the ground even harder.
Yes, because I want to have more than a dialogue. Dialogue is the basics. We cannot move forward without dialogue, but dialogue creates the room for an alliance. And what we should be seeking for is not the dialogue itself, but the alliance. The dialogue will lead eventually it will create the room for an alliance. You cannot have an alliance without dialogue. But we should look at the possibilities of alliance, and alliances are a positive thing, but usually they formulate under pressure when two sides are facing a harsh enemy that they cannot deal with alone. They found themselves sometimes, they found an alliance and they found common ground with each other, or maybe sometimes it happened the other way around. But I think that political Abrahamism, that basically I describe, and that's my book is considered to be the manifesto of political Abrahamism, can serve as a regional formula to be the opposite side of political Islam. Because what you mentioned before is the problem. Political Islam doesn't teach all the Quran. It doesn't teach the entirety of Islam. It teaches only the parts of Islam that are causing radicalization and eventually violence and eventually counter-violence, because that's how violence works. And political Abrahamism can serve as a framework that enables you and me to say that we are a brother and a sister, and to be on the same side that seeks freedom, that see the common ground between us, that oppose the ideas of radical Islam or extremists in every side that are trying to oppose their agenda on the other. And if we can find ourselves in the same political camp, then the alliance is natural. If we created the common ground and we share the same values and we understand that our common enemy are the extremists and not each other identities, then we have a 360-degree circle that starts with a dialogue but leads to an alliance.
Thank you. I'm reminded of this theology of the hammer. It was coined by Millard Fuller, who said this is the concept that emphasized putting Christian faith and love into action. So what it said was, we learn a lot about each other when we come together and hammer a nail in the wall, rather than begin the conversation with, you did this, I did this, we have to go through all of this first, So perhaps something like that But I am not I'm not a very optimist on this particular. Bringing the good together is the hardest thing, because I am told, Tom, that there is an anti-normalization conversation that's happening in the parts of in particularly in West Bank, and that is going to have a huge impact. How do you first break that barrier to get to that next place where you are told, no, you are not going to normalize? And this is not something made up. About 12 years ago, I was invited to an event at the Israeli consulate in Los Angeles. And I came back and I put a post because I went there particularly to meet Abdul Jabbar, the basketball player, was a guest for dinner. And I got so sidelined, blamed, and shamed just for going to that event. How could you go to this Israeli event? So if I in LA experience that, I'm wondering how much harder it must be in the circles. Sometimes, not without reason, in some circles, because we have this conversation of settlements, occupier, and the indignities. How do you work through the truths of all of that?
Well, if we look from an Abrahamic point of view, okay, so the question of identities is getting an answer. And then we can we can put aside the idea of separation, because you need separation only when there's anonymity between identities, and can think about unity. For example, as the European Union model, or in another example, in a one-state solution that everyone are equal in. Because what really is stopping, I would say, a major part of the solution are fears. So we have fears from the Israeli side that they will be slaughtered by radicals or maybe not slaughtered, but dominated and silenced, like the Copts that you mentioned in Egypt, or like other minority population in the Middle East. And this fear is justified, and it creates a militarized society that is speaking in the language of force rather in the language of love and brotherhood. And on the other hand, there's a very legitimate Palestinian fear because well, we know the background story of Palestinians that were occupied and basically suffer from many aspects of the military regime. But if we take a closer look into Israel, we will find about 2 million Israeli citizens that are Arabs, Muslims, and Israeli, and have equal rights, and some would even say some privileges over Jewish citizens. Of course, and like in all societies, we'll find also issues of bigotry, Islamophobia as well, persecution of minorities by individuals that are problematic. Of course, you will find that, but they are equal citizens. They vote, they are parliament members, they are doctors and academics and ambassadors, and some of them are integrated in the military. And it happened after they spent 20 years under military regime as the same as the Palestinians. And in 66, if I'm not mistaken, again, almost 20 years after after 48, when Israel was announced, and the Arabs that stayed in Israel and didn't run away were under military occupation of not as citizens, but in the same status of the Palestinians today. After 20 years of de-radicalization, over there was a deep process that created de-radicalization of this population with intervention with the education system, in the mosques, with rooting down the Muslim Brotherhood forces and radical ideas from the mainstream leadership of the country. And afterwards, in about 66, the Jews, the Israelis, felt secure enough to give 2 million Muslim citizens equal rights because they were de-radicalized. And because some of them, of course, there are still problems, it's a process, but some of them found the strength or the possibility to look at Jews as their cousins, and maybe even, not maybe, but some of them even found or reconnected to the parts of Quran that you read before, that basically say that my assignment, that what Allah has assigned to me, I'm a son of Israel, Allah has assigned to me according to Quran to go back, to go to this holy land that was assigned to the sons of Israel. I'm just quoting Quran, and to never turn back. So if I'm not allowed to turn back, and this is my place, and I should respect, and I do respect, the rights of the Muslims, and of course the Christians or any other minority group that belongs to this place and are peaceful, and they don't and are not committed to my destruction, because that's the key, that we're not committed to each other's destruction. If we will set this ground rule, and it will become obvious to all people from all sides that we are not committed to each other's destruction, we are just committed to ensure security in our communities, then it will become obvious that, for example, the settlements are no longer an issue, because it's the right of a Jew to live where he chooses to live, and the right of a Muslim to live where he chooses to live. And there shouldn't be an issue with the Muslim that chooses to live in Tel Aviv, or in Haifa, or in Jerusalem, or in Beersheba, or any other place. And there shouldn't be a problem with the Jew that choose to live, for example, in Hebron. That's my view. And we can discuss, of course, other views, but the main thing is that we discuss it as a family.
So settlements, you use the word settlements, the central issue you say of the Western plan is the dismantling of Israeli settlements in Judea and Samaria. What you're saying is that there should be no difference between you live here, I live there. You want everybody to live together without any boundaries and borders. Is that what you're proposing?
First of all, the fact that we live together, Jews and Muslims, first of all, it's a fact. And second of all, it's an undisputed fact in Israel, because no one suggested, of course, neither myself, but no one suggested separation in terms of evacuating the Arab Muslim population that is inside Israel. And I think that no one should suggest that part of the solution is evacuating Jews from their homes because they are Jews and they belong to the other side. I don't believe that someone should be evacuated from his home because of his ethnicity. That's my view. I think that we all should learn how to coexist and to respect each other as brothers and sisters, and everyone should be able to choose where he lives in this Abrahamic state. Of course, there's a lot of way to go, because we still live in a situation of enmity. And today, when you speak about the settlements, you can't avoid the discussion about settlers' violence, because it became a part of what's going on today, and it's a part that should be stopped. But there are many, many settlers, most of the settlers, who are not violent and are not a part of a violent situation. Many of them were born in the houses that they live today. And I think that the idea of separation itself is a bad idea. The idea that someone should have a clean space from the other is not how we want to start this discussion. We should start this discussion from the question of how to accept each other, how to learn to live with each other, not how to separate ourselves from the other. Because even if we have walls to separate us, we saw that rockets can go over walls and tractors can go over walls, and every wall that you can build, an army can destroy, or a terrorist organization can destroy. So the only solution is to change the awareness rather than to change the border.
Right. You are talking about an elevated level of consciousness in every one of us, isn't it? To see, begin with the end in mind, like, is what I'm doing going to produce peace, or is it going to produce hate? Is it going to produce war, or is it going to produce connection? I agree with you that we need to believe in dismantling all these borders and boundaries and focus on a new way of thinking. And in order to do that, Tom, I think the children are a critical component. The next generation would be very, very important to invest in tremendously, because it is they who will wake up and say, we want peace, we are tired of this. So I don't know, I hope I'm saying this right. Gush Etzion is a model, you say, and an inspiration, a place where moderate religious leaders have worked to build bridges between communities, creating a reality where Jews and Muslims cooperate and live together in peace and harmony. I was amazed myself to hear that in Gush Etzion, rabbis and imams sit together in a study group, studying the Torah and the Quran side by side. So what they are typically doing, I believe, is, as you say, they're remembering the legacy of Abraham. So maybe we have to really focus very deeply on the role the religious leaders can play in this conflict. Tom, your thoughts on that?
For sure. I think that well, there are two ways of looking at this conflict. One way is through territorial eyes. And when we look at it through territorial eyes, that is a valid way to look at it. I'm not saying that it's not, but it's very hard to find solutions because there are two people on this land and they need room, and everyone trying to cancel the other one's sovereignty or rights. It's a zero-sum game, and I think that everyone are trying to solve this problem without succeeding in producing new ideas. But there's also a religious aspect into it. And we saw, first of all, that October 7th, that created basically the regional war, this current regional war, was called by Hamas Tufan al-Aqsa, the Typhoon of al-Aqsa. It was based on religious narratives, very radical religious narratives. I would even claim non-Muslim religious narratives that do not align to me with Muslim Sharia. If someone says, and that's what happened, if a sheikh says as a Sharia verdict that the only solution for the Jewish enemy is to cut off its head, that's contradictory to Islam. Islam says, speak to the people of the book in the most delicate way. That's Quran. And if someone says cut off his head, we can probably agree that it is not the most delicate way to have a conversation. So I think that if what we have seen, imagine in theory that all Muslims would answer this law, okay? All Muslims would speak to the people of the book only in the most delicate way. I'm telling you this as a Jew. The Jewish complex of oppression and slaughter will start calming down. And after the panic level the Jews constantly live in as a minority surrounded by enemies, after the panic levels will go down, we can go and we can sit and discuss it as cousins. And if the Jewish side won't be in panic, it will start looking, if the Muslims would treat the Jews in the most delicate way, the Jews will start looking at the Muslims as cousins in the way that happened, by the way, with the Druze. The Druze population that basically is very friendly to the Jewish population, that assimilated into Israeli identity, that is not only Jewish, that became part of Zionism while maintaining the Druze religion. Okay, it came to an extent that the Jewish community, the Druze community in Syria that were under attack by jihadists received aerial umbrella and military support by the Jewish state in the same way that the Jewish community would receive. Even that there are citizens of an enemy state, and we never, as Israelis, we never had any relations with the Druze community of Syria, and they were fighting us on occasions. They were part of the Assad army. We didn't have any friendship with them, but the Israeli Druze became a part of us, and we couldn't see them cry. We couldn't see them miserable when the brothers were slaughtered. And they weren't our enemies, they became our friends. So we've done what friends are doing. We've done what families are doing. We try to support them, we try to assist them. And I think this is a valid formula to how this reignition of relationship could work. Imagine what would happen if, when Israel was formed, the Muslim world would say, look, the prophecy is upon us, rejoice. And the Jews would say, we came as the prophecy said, and you should be proud of us. And we were all hugging each other and dancing on the streets.
Beautiful vision. And I see personally, I have not met many Palestinians in the West Bank, but I hope to this year, many of them, and work with them very closely. Because in my work, I'm always wondering who is not at the table, you know. That person needs to sit at the table to represent that community. But at this point, I remember very vividly after October 7th, we were by the Gaza border and I met this woman, her name was Mirev. She was telling us how she was on the phone with her mother and her mother told her, I can hear Arabic voices by the window. And she hung up. And the mother showed up at the door and said only she was alive in the house, when in fact her husband and grandchild was inside the house. So of course Hamas, with all its brutality, with the innocent Palestinians get dragged into, you know, by proxy. The Hamas, they brutally they chopped her, they cut her into pieces. And how we know this is that they took her mother's phone and they called her, they texted her. They said the old woman lied. But why I'm telling this story, Tom, is the level of brutality is beyond human. But this woman, Mireille, was able to tell us, oh, but that's not all Palestinians, that's only Hamas. Her ability to discern that was very important. And we thought if she was the only one, but every person we met on down in that from that kibbutz Be'eri had similar thoughts and they knew exactly. So what you're saying is that if the Palestinian that people also open up and see the Jewish people differently, you know, we can have a different conversation. So what is preventing that? I'm wondering your thoughts, Tom, on the diaspora Palestinians. I was speaking to somebody and they said it's easier to convince the Palestinians in the West Bank and maybe in Gaza now they are more convinced, but the diaspora Palestinians with their slogans and with their free and intifada. Are they creating more problems here? What are your thoughts on that?
First of all, sometimes you refer to people that mainly I'm not sure if they're really Palestinian diaspora or most of them are rather, of course, Arabs slash Muslims, but not really Palestinians. Obviously, if you speak only in numbers, most of the crowd that you would see in pro-Palestine demonstrations in the West are not really Palestinian diaspora. Obviously, some of them are, but many of them comes from different Arab states, which is perfectly okay. Of course, it's their right to feel empathy, and I'm also pro-Palestinian. I'm just also pro-Israeli. Those are not mutually exclusive. I think that in many ways, what we see here, partially, of course, some of it are people that have their heart in the right place. Because if you take a look at what's happening in Gaza, it's really horrible. And of course, good people are going to demonstrate against it. I should say that there's another side to the story, because as someone who lives in southern Israel, I was living under Hamas fire for the last 15 years, and no one was demonstrating against it. We are also suffering. But if you will take a look at the pro-Palestinian demonstrations, I think there's also large involvement of radical Islam and Muslim Brotherhood, and not only Muslim Brotherhood, but also Iranian regime-affiliated forces from the Shia side. And obviously, that there are, first of all, the regimes in Iran, Qatar, and Turkey are putting a lot of efforts and a lot of money to promoting anti-Israeli agenda, and also radicalism. And I think that the easiest thing to do for to control people, to control masses, is to create a demon enemy. And for those forces, Israel is a classic demon enemy, and a classic way to rally their forces, not only against Israel, but also against many other issues. Because you can see, for example, that there's a huge boycott on Starbucks in the West by the pro-Palestinian or the Free Palestine movement, or some radical factor that are affiliated to it. And there's not even a single Starbucks cafe in Israel. This company doesn't invest in Israel in any way, shape, or form, and is totally unrelated. So obviously, they're trying to attack them because they're a symbol of Western culture or Americanism or something that is not really directly linked to this conflict. So I think, yes, for sure, the radical elements that are not trying to promote ceasefire, that you can see that, because you can see that there are some demonstrations that lasted the ceasefire. The ceasefire happened, but yet people continued to demonstrate against Israel, etc., etc. So obviously, when you form your message on the resistance, not to a war, not to an occupation of a land, but to someone else's existence, to my existence as an Israeli, that again, not only by my right as a nation, but also by your religion. Obviously, it's not promoting peace, because I will have no choice but to fight if I'm with my back to the wall.
Thank you. I'm also reflecting on the irony of it. There are American Syrians here. Syria, more than 500,000 Syrians have been have died and been killed in civil wars. Nobody here is boycotting Syria businesses and asking the Syrians, American Syrians, to hold the Syrian government accountable. Same with Yemen. And personally, my country, Sri Lanka, we fought a 30-year civil war. 40,000 people died and 100,000 people are unaccounted for. I mean, I'll be appalled if people rallied against me and told me if my Sri Lankan businesses were closed, if they boycotted and told me, held me accountable for what is happening in Sri Lanka. And this brings us to a very important topic of the Abraham Accords. This is why the Abraham Accords are so important. I think what happens with the Abraham Accords is mostly it is people connections that is to be promoted. Because after Gaza, the war started, UAE treated 73,000 patients. That was because of the Abraham Accords, right? And thousands, there were floating hospitals that were built. That was because of the Abraham Accord. The trust between Israel and the UAE has been now cemented because of the Abraham Accords. And I believe governments come and go. Our allegiance should be to the people. And I think building a shared responsibility, that's the vision the UAE says it does, between the people is very critical. What are your thoughts on the Abraham Accords? Because now it's joined by Morocco and several other Arab countries. Is that promising for your vision
Of
of an
course.
Abrahamic identity? Yes?
Of course, I think that basically it's the same two processes as we've seen in Europe. On one hand, the formation of some sort of political structure. The Abraham Accords are, of course, for now are accords, but they also, it already looks like it will be all more developed than just accords, because you can already see how Kazakhstan is joining the Abraham Accords, even that it has relationship with Israel since 1993. So that's just a future where the Abraham Accords will become more than diplomatic relations, but maybe some sort of economical alliance or some sort of treaty, maybe even equivalent to NATO. But obviously, it carries a lot of promises, and you can see that both processes goes hand with hand, because in countries where the Abraham Accords apply, such as Morocco, the UAE, and Bahrain, so it creates relationship not only between the governments but also between the people. Many Israelis are traveling to the UAE and to Morocco and learn to appreciate the culture and the food, and are gaining friends, and afterwards they stay in touch in the social media, and then we learn to understand each other's pains and each other's needs and each other's dreams, and then we can become us rather than you and I, or rather than enemies. And in Europe, we saw an equivalent process, that countries started joining a political treaty that was before the European Union was an economical treaty before they opened up the borders. But also it went hand in hand with the formation of an identity and the narrative. And I think that what's going on over here is that the mind and the resources are focused on the political side, or the formation of the Abraham Accords, but there's almost no work on the issue of identities, or the formation of a shared identity that must be a bridge. And my main concern to the future of the Abraham Accords, Soraya, are not the interest of the governments, because basically for most of the regimes in the Middle East, the interest is peace and stability. But the regimes can go only as far as the people will allow. It's true in democracies, and it's also true in non-democracies. I think, I estimate, I wouldn't dare speak on behalf of His Highness, but I would estimate that if you would ask His Highness the King of Saudi Arabia if he would choose to have peace with Israel, if he wouldn't have the problem of a backlash in his community, if he wouldn't have the possibility maybe even of some sort of an outburst because of radical Islamic forces that will try to use this as an opportunity to maybe even to dethrone him. So I think that it becomes obvious that we as civil society leaders, we as intellectuals, and also this accountability is also on the business community and also on the governments. They should also be a part of creating the identity because the agreements won't hold, the political accords won't hold if we won't take care of the identity. If we will continue to have a situation of enmity that is strengthened by religious radicals, so in the end, even the regimes that already signed the Abraham Accords could be dethroned or destabilized by radical forces. And we've seen similar things happen alongside history. So we cannot just look at the political solution. That's the responsibility of the state's leader, and I'm glad that they are taking care of this responsibility, or so it seems. But it won't be enough if we won't take care of the enmity between the people.
Thank you. I also want to ask you, we are coming towards the end. I have a guest who is here. I want to ask her a question, but my last question to you is in your book, Tom, you spoke about personal laws. Muslims have personal laws, laws of marriage, inheritance, guardianship, lots of personal laws. I have debated these laws and got into terrible terrible accusations against me, saying that I'm trying to change the Islamic laws. Like where I come from in Sri Lanka, we have personal laws for the Muslims. That means that they are entitled to have polygamy is allowed for Muslims. Then child marriage with exceptions are allowed. Guardianship laws are different than the common law. Laws of inheritance favor my brothers more than me. And I was wondering, what is the setup in Israel? Are there no personal laws allowed? Because you had said in your book that Israel should legitimize polygamy laws as a means of reaching out to the Muslim people. I don't know how much is given, how much is withheld. Could you talk to that?
So first of all, the rules of Israel allow for complete freedom of personal issues. So if you choose to wear a bikini on the street or you choose to wear a burqa, that's your business. And if you want to eat halal or kosher or to eat whatever you want, that's your business. The state is not involved. If you want to build a mosque, you can build a mosque. There are many mosques in Israel. I'm sorry to say that Muslims are rarely aware of it, and it's really important that they will be. You can do dawah in Israel. Muslim dawah, it's allowed. There's no problem with it. It's completely legal, and it happens. Muslims do dawahs in their communities, and there's no problem with that. By the way, it's very important to note that the Israeli states is funding mosques and imams. My friend Sheikh Al-Ubra, who is the Grand Imam of Rahat, he's an employee of the state. He works is an imam, he gets salary from the Israeli government, the same way that there are rabbis that get salary for supplying religious services for the population. But I would like to say regarding the first part of your question, and it is a really deep topic, maybe we should discuss it sometime to depth. but there's a very profound question of what is a Muslim. And maybe it's not my place to say as a Jew, but I discussed this question to depth in my next book, The Unity of Believers, that will be soon published in English and was co-authored with my Palestinian friend Elias Nasri Baboon, that you also know. And in that book, basically we go back to the ancient scriptures, mostly Quran, but not only Quran, and we find that according to Quran, a Muslim is a monotheist. That's the definition of a Muslim in the Quran. So I would be considered as a Muslim, a Jewish Muslim. The Jews should be considered as Muslims. And the Christians are also Muslims, Christian Muslims. And that way of thinking, which is totally according to Quran, because as you probably know, Quran speaks of Abraham as a Muslim, Hanif Muslim. Abraham didn't follow the Quran, he didn't follow Muhammad, he predated Muhammad. So, and it's not only regarding Abraham. There are many people who are Jews or Christians that are described in Quran as Muslims because they are monotheistic, and that's the original term. So basically, if you take a deep read into the Quran, that's my opinion, and of course it's arguable. You will find out that Quran really described a Muslim as a monotheistic, and you don't have to follow all the Sunnah of Muhammad or all the Sharia laws to be considered Muslims. It's okay that you're monotheistic and you follow the basic rules of morality, you shall not kill,
Okay.
etc.
Okay. Thank you. So in Israel, is there a separate court for the Arabs?
Yes, there's a Sharia court
Oh,
that is, of course, in matters of personal affairs such as marriage,
oh,
inheritance.
that's allowed.
It's not only allowed, it's mandatory by law and it's state
Oh,
sponsored.
that's
And
beautiful.
Muslim Qadis are the judges of those courts that are part of the Israeli law, and
Okay.
they get their salary from the government as judges or as rabbinical judges in the Jewish court.
Okay. Okay. So, Tom, you know, your vision of an Abrahamic identity is possible only if we have sufficient Palestinians who get on board.
Definitely.
And yes, that is clearly we need to understand. So one day I was at a program, and then there was this woman, I call her a very dear friend now. She said to me that 35,000 Palestinian children are orphans today, and still many Palestinian bodies are under the rubble, and that haunts them. That haunts them, and I don't know. That needs to be addressed. But she has a vision. She works for the good, and she's working with women and children. And she's in the room, and I want to ask her. Her name is Lama Abur Kobi. What is the biggest challenge, Lama, for you to get through to your community? What is the question they say that is impossible to break through? I want you to share that with Tom, because we have work to do and we have to really get to the bottom of the solutions. We can't be talking in the peripheries. So please share your vision and the difficulty you have, and what can the Jewish community do, and what can the Muslim diaspora do for you? Thank you, Lama.
Thank
And
you,
of course,
Sarah.
Lama is a peace activist. I mean, her bio is longer than I can read today, but she's an incredible woman who has done tremendous work to bring to promote peace. Lama, please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Soraya. I have been listening to Tom for an hour now, and I can't just go without connecting my answer to what he has just said. The challenges that face any change of heart or structure in Israel-Palestine is actually something that I felt in Tom's speech now. Like, there is a lot of, or there are few things of what he has just said are disconnected from reality. I'm sorry to say, like when Tom spoke of the settlements, he doesn't really actually know what's happening when there is a settlement, and that was before after 1967 until now. People were deprived the access to their lands. It was confiscated not only for building settlements, it was confiscated for security reasons. And that's something that has been happening not only after the first intifada, the second intifada, or after the seventh. It has been happening since 1967. And I am living this reality every day in West Bank here. The other challenge, beside how little people know about what's really happening on the ground, the other challenge is the fact that we exclusively talk about the conflict as if it's religious. I always put religion aside, history aside, and talk about what's going on the ground. It's not because people are Muslims or religious, they want or they see the Israeli as an enemy. It's the reality on the ground, the everyday reality that is happening, not only in Gaza, in West Bank, just yesterday, just today. Everything that is happening is a challenge. When you reach a point that there is a change of the heart in a Palestinian, something on the ground happen and takes you back to square one. So it's unfair also to say that a textbook that was written 4,000 years ago or 2,000 years ago should tell me how to live now, or who to live with now, or how to live with that person or that people now. If it's about rights, my grandparents were in Spain for 400 years. So I can go back there and claim that it's my homeland, it's my place, it's my promised land. Or I can go to Mecca because my roots come from Mecca. They are tracked down to Mecca, to Umar ibn al-Khattab. So I can easily claim that I have the right to go there and be there. I know that I don't see it like this. I see that there were two people. One people fought and established their state, and that's legitimate. What's not legitimate is to rule out thousands of people from their land to acclaim the promised land, to kill many people to acclaim the promised land, to deny the right of return to many people who do not have the speak to right on their behalf now, because these people also, the Palestinians in diaspora, are disconnected from reality. This is why I call them heroes of keyboard. They don't have a clue what's happening here. They are driven by their emotions, and they don't read the reality. They don't live the reality on the ground like I do, like millions of other Palestinians do every day. They can't just pretend that they know what's going on here. The difference is that a Palestinian in diaspora is not granted the right to come to visit their grandparents' village in Israel. Any Jew in diaspora, in Europe, in any place, have an easy access to reach to Israel and be there in their promised land.
I
So
hear
the
you
challenge
deeply,
is actually is how to do a change of heart. It's not enough. It's urgent, but it's not enough. What's urgent also is to do a change in the structure. How to stop people from being afraid, how to stop people from dehumanizing the other. I mean, if all these privileges are given to a certain people because they have a promised land, then what's the difference between what's happening now and what was happening in Europe in the Second World War by the Germans?
No, but
I don't I don't actually approach the conflict from the window of religion a lot, and it's unfair. It's way from the truth, way from the facts on the ground, just to exclusively approach the conflict from this angle. And you don't need a terrorist or a Muslim who is very rigid to tell you why we don't approve of the Abraham Accords as a first step, for example. Like my students 16 and 17, when you ask them what's wrong with the word normalization, it's becoming normal. What's wrong with becoming normal? What's wrong with the Abraham Accords? They would say, it's like you're jumping from one, you're missing one and two and you're going to three. What needs to be done first is equal right of existence for both Palestinians and Israelis, and then move to normalization, move to Abraham Accords, move to everything. So the challenges are actually the ignorance on the Israeli side and the ignorance on the Palestinian side. That's the main challenge. And how to do this? To start with schools. I am doing something on my own, but it's not enough. And unless the circle is widened, how can the circle be bigger? Not only me, not only my students, but it will be on both sides, Israelis and Palestinians doing the same. How? By changing the structure, by changing the reality. What we know, what we see, what we read, what we have experienced so far from the Israeli religious people is what? For us, I would speak of Hebron, Baruch Goldstein, Ben Gvir, and other very, very, very good people, very good religious people who see the other on the same human level as the Israelis. I think what we need to do is to work on the inner of the Israeli and on the inner of the Palestinian nationally before we do anything binationally. And it will take a lot of time, sustainable interference from educators, from as long as we cannot change our politicians or the key players in the area. I mean, the key players are the extremists in Israel and the extremists in Palestine. Otherwise, we wouldn't have been here today facing the ugly reality.
I just want to make a comment, the extremism in both sides, you say, but I see also as a huge deterrent obstacle is that in Palestine, I always keep saying this, the quality of the negotiations can't exceed the people who are engaged in the negotiations. What are the quality of the people who are engaged in the peace process from Palestine? I feel that it is terrible. The quality is very weak. You don't have elections, 15 years of the same. What I see hope in Israel is that it's a democracy, and they will push out whoever the next leader they don't like, and they also have people protesting So we have to keep that in mind as we demand for justice and as we demand for solutions. Sometimes we have to leave that paradigm and explore new paradigms. And I feel that in Tom's work, that's what he has presented. And not to underestimate whatever you said, but the space for that, what you are proposing, is very challenging. I want to give it to Tom to respond. Thank you.
Alama, first of all, it is a pleasure to meet you and to have this discussion. And I think it's a very important discussion. I'm not speaking only about religion. I think that religion can be a bridge, but we should have bridges between non-believers as well, and between believers and non-believers from both sides. But I think that it's important for you to understand that I'm not here because it's written, it's either in the Torah or in the Quran that this land was promised to me 3,000 years ago. I'm here because I live here the same way that you live here, and I belong to here the same way that you belong to here, and the same way that you don't have any other home, I don't have any other home either. So the answer is very simple. Maybe I also have more arguments. Maybe when there's an Islamic argument, say that I shouldn't exist sometimes, or maybe that there's a fake Islamic argument that say that I should be eliminated. So I preserve my right to answer this argument according to the Quran and to quote things that exist in the Quran. But even if you would persuade me that it's not what's written in the Quran or it's not what's written in the Torah, I won't go away because I have nowhere to go and this is my home. So what you expressed before, first of all, and I recognize everything you said. I know that you suffer. We suffer too. I live under fire for 15 years. My daughter basically never knew any part of her life that she wasn't exposed to alarms and rocket fire. So we can and we should acknowledge each other pains. And what you said is very real, but I want to also refer to a point in what you said. You said that land was confiscated from security reasons. Now, I won't argue that confiscating land is bad. I won't argue against it, okay? And I won't say, I won't be the one that will protect every step that the Israeli government is doing. And for sure, there's a lot of injustice. But you have to understand that the term security is about self-defense. It's about self-preservation. And my sister, you cannot expect that I won't defend myself. And I accept your right for security. And I know that we should work on that. But I think that the Palestinian side, and I'm not referring only to you, this is not a personal issue. And I think that you are magnificent in anything that you're doing. But I think that the Palestinian side should be aware that Israelis are here to stay and we're not going anywhere. And this is our home, and we can accept that this is your home too, but you should accept that this is our home too.
Of course.
And it's not about who was here 3,000 years ago, but rather about who is here today. And we should learn how to live with each other today. And sometimes with certain people, you mentioned the religious people, the Jewish religious people that are problematic in Hebron, sometimes not all of them, as you mentioned, but this kind of discourse could be a key to their heart as well, because they are also follow of the Abrahamic traditions, and they should also be a part of the dialogue. And you know what? Maybe if we will succeed in bringing together even the harsh people, even the people that tend to be sort of harsh in their interpretations, to sit together and to recognize each other and to use those 3,000 years old texts not only to find reasons to fight, but also to find reasons for peace. And we need reasons for peace. We need peace. So I accept everything you said, but I still think that the answer is in creation of new bridges that will help us to see each other's pains and to make peace with each other and to resolve each other for what happened, because there's no other way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I also want to add, I'm very heartened to hear from Lama that she thinks it's not religious. But I've been thinking it was religious, Lama, for the simple reason we have enough evidence to show hatred preached towards the Jews in many mosques. In fact, the religious legitimacy for Jew hatred is very high. I will not talk about what I saw, but I experienced. I took my Jewish rabbi friend to my local mosque and I sat through the Jummah, and we had to leave because very disparaging things were said about the Jewish people. Yes, and about quoting the prophet and legitimizing it. And for 17 years, I've been involved in addressing this at the Muslim Students Union at Davis, Sacramento. About 15 years ago, I got a call, please come, the Imam is preaching hate. Can we have an interfaith? We sit together. And that particular year, there were many. So I'm glad that Palestinians must not be indoctrinated into believing we have a right to hate the Jew. That's wonderful. But I also heard a sermon at Al-Aqsa by the chief rabbi, by one of the sheikhs who said we have to get rid of the Jews. So it's very complex. I don't think none of us have the final word on this. But I just want to know, in Palestinian mosques, it is not used as a weapon then. Is that what you're saying?
I think we are on the same page very much more than we realize, actually, especially Tom and I. We are speaking the same language almost. We are speaking the language of here and now. Yes, we are not going anywhere, and you are not going anywhere, but we have to live not as an oppressor and oppressed, but as equal people. And for this to happen, we need a lot of work. Suraya, what most people outside the conflict zone of Israel-Palestine don't know is that this conflict is very unique. It sounds as if it's religious because extremists on both sides are key players now, and I don't know since when, but for now, yes, they are key players and they are in control, and they come from religious perspectives. But the conflict here is based on reality. I don't hear one of the youngsters, one of the children that I teach, saying that we should resist Israel because we are Muslims and they are Jews. They would explain, they would say, because my father was beaten at that checkpoint. The house of our neighbors was blown out. The other day we had to rush my brother to the hospital, and because of the yellow gates, the closed yellow gates, we couldn't. They argue about the facts. They argue with the facts. It's not coming from the fact that we are Muslims and they are Jews. No, this is why what I mean when I say it's not religious. It's ideological, yes. And when the extreme ideologies met in Israel and in Palestine, we are in hell now, and we have to find a way out of it.
You know, we have come to the end.
I just want to say something about a question you asked. What need to be changed on the table of negotiation? Yes. The people who suffered most, the women, the mothers. I wouldn't make less of the pain of the fathers or of other social categories, but the people who suffer most are not around the negotiation table. They are not. The people who are around the negotiation table are the extreme radicals and the people with political interests, not the people who should be there. And what we are trying to do day in and day out, at least I'm speaking of myself, is to create a potential future leaders, negotiators, women leaders. Something that I would love to see in the future, and it's not just because we need to look modern. We have women on the negotiation delegation. No, because these people or the women are the ones who suffer most.
Thank you, Lama. I can imagine you are in the situation, you are experiencing it. Thank you for sharing your challenges. We like, it's very sad to hear this when the problem is complex. And I say during the Holocaust, the Muslims in Albania saved 2,500 Jews. My friend went and met those Albanians. She's Jewish. She met those Albanians. And even today, I think the grassroots, we have to stand up for each other, because in America, we are fighting high levels of anti-Semitism. Jewish business are boycotted, Jewish children are marginalized, and it's very complex. So I want to give our guest, Tom, the last words. And my words are that our Quran mandates that when somebody bends to you in peace, we have to make peace. In 1947, in 1948, the Jews bent to us in peace. They bent to us in peace many times. There was a Palestinian policy of rejectionism that I think personally that we didn't address very strongly enough. And the Palestinians will say, oh, we didn't have that deal, we didn't have this deal. But I know personally the Jewish people, the Jewish state bent to us in peace, and we had a different agenda that we did not, Palestinians were not involved in that. It was the Arab nations. So that's another story for another time. I want to give closing comments to my dear friend and brother, Tom.
Thank you so much for this opportunity and this very important dialogue. I think that we should find the opportunity to continue it because we have a lot more to speak of. First of all, I would like to say that even that of course, I understand and appreciate Lama's perspective, and none of us has all the truth in his perspective. And if you would consider the fact that Israel is also in a conflict, for example, with Iran, that as a Shia country is not really part of this territorial discussion and is not really a part of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Or, for example, Hezbollah or the Houthis, that if we can be frank for a second, they're Shias who would probably kill most of the Palestinian Sunnis if they could, because they consider them to be heretics. So we can say that there is also, even that Lama's perspective is very realistic, and I'm not disputing it, but there's also a religious dimension to it. And I think that we should address all dimensions of the conflict, because the key part, as Lama suggested, is who is at the table. And I want to suggest the point of view that says that it's not only about replacing the politicians. It's not only about creating new leadership that will be a part of the state and will go to the diplomatic rooms, etc. But look at this table, at this discussion that we're having now, which is a part of the agenda for many people that will watch it. We have, we are at the table. We can reach agreements between us. We can have a court between us. We can speak of our problems and find a common ground. And people can follow, because once we will figure out the solutions, many people will say, okay, I can live with those solutions. Okay, If Lama and Soraya and Tom comes to an agreement that all of them are happy with, we can work with that. And as I said today, we don't have to wait to the leaderships to go with their suits to visit some five-star hotel lobby and to speak as they know all the people in the planet. We can be the people at the table, and we should create those tables for the people to interact directly. Because I think that the issue of poor leadership is a problem. And I think that we won't succeed to solve this problem only in education of each side and its confined space. We should find a way to grow together. Lama's students in our class should have those discussions with my daughter's class in Israel, and they should speak their pain to their Israeli cousins. And the Israeli cousins should be able to say to them, hey, we are also under fire, we are also afraid, you should also assure our security, and then we will be able to assure your security. And if they will find a way to interact with each other from young ages, then they will also be able to solve problems together when they're old. And I think that we should have as a mission, the same way that political Islam or radical elements in Judaism are taking upon themselves as a mission, as an active mission to harass the other side, we should take upon ourselves as a mission to create dialogue on all levels. We should aspire for singers on both sides to sing with each other, and for a sports group from both sides to play with each other, not as rivals, but to actually play together, and for intellectuals to cooperate, and for academics to research together, and for kids to study together. And after we will achieve that, we will have enough empathy from both sides to understand each other, and the solutions will come naturally if both sides will feel secure.
Thank you so much. I hope the two of you will connect and we will meet soon,
Definitely.
inshallah. Thank you for this time.
Amen.
Thank you for sharing both your challenges, and we hope we will move forward. Not a prolific peace, maybe at least let's coexist without wanting to kill each other. That'll be a good start. Thank you so much. Please be
Thank you,
blessed.
Soraya.
Thank you, Lama.
Tom.
Thank
Be
you, Tom.
safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Lama. It was a
Bye.
pleasure.